Okay, so just today, I thought I would catch up on Wander Over Yonder. For those who haven't seen it, it's Craig McCracken did a thing for Disney. He was the Powerpuff Girls, right?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. I get him and Gennady Tartakovsky mixed up sometimes. And for those who haven't seen it, it's about a little alien whose goal is to make friends with everybody in the galaxy and to find the good in them. And he is primarily the antagonist of a villain, Lord Hater, who was proof that Craig just wanted to make an Adventures of Skeletor cartoon and couldn't get the rights.
That's been my position for a really long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the second and final season, they introduced a new villain, Lord Dominator. She is simultaneously hilarious because she is basically a teenage girl, and she is also a legitimate villain. Where all the other villains in the series were more worried about their rankings in the villain charts and how many planets they conquered.
Yeah, they play villainy like they're gamers, basically.
Yeah. Dominator was out to destroy every planet. Just straight up destroy them.
Mm-hmm.
The implication is that she's killed millions, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I caught up to the end. And Dominator has destroyed pretty much every planet. I mean, she's just left them as cracked husks as she drains the magma from the cores. And there's just this handful of heroes left. The people are, their people are scattered all over the galaxy without any planets to call home, or any living planets at least. And Wander, the alien, gets it into his head he's got to talk to Dominator. Where everybody's thinking they got a destroyer, he sticks to his guns. He is a non-violent being, and tries to talk to her. And as it turns out, Hater, who was in love with her briefly before she shot him down bad, and in a great song too. Go to YouTube, look up a song called I'm the Bad Guy." Great little number. But basically, there's this big fight. And Wander's kind of been captured. And Dominator's ship does blow up. She's beaten. Her robots are destroyed. She's got nobody and nothing. But Wander saves her life. And she's looking lost. And Wander offers her the fruit basket that he loves to offer everybody. And there's this quiet moment. And then she slaps it out of his hand. Calls everybody there, "You are idiots. I've tried to kill you so many times. I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm out of here. I don't want to have anything more to do with you morons." And just starts walking away through space. Wander's whole thing has always been an enemy is just a friend you haven't made yet. And this series ended with him unable to make a friend of an enemy. Because sometimes people are just jerks who hate you for no justifiable reason, and their only goal is to hurt you. And you can't, try as you might, you can't reach them. I just thought that was kind of poignant as of late. I'm not sure why, but just throwing that out there. So what did you see recently, Trent?
I recently saw Doctor Strange. I don't want to talk much about it because I don't want to spoil it because it's very good and I recommend that everyone sees it. Visually, it requires being in the theater. I didn't see it in 3D, but because I was with someone who gets headaches with the 3D movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go back and see it in 3D because this thing would be a trip in 3D. It's the visual effects department woke up and decided that they were going to make Inception look like it was, a third grade film project.
Hmm.
There isn't a whole lot of really new visual effects. It's stuff that you've seen before, but just ramped up to its sort of maximum points. And
done really well.
yeah, and it is also the most origin story-ish Marvel movie since I would say Thor, because it does have to establish like the whole magical realm of Marvel and how that works.
Yeah.
But the characters are interesting. The characters of Wong and Mordo are actually both major players through the film. Um, which I was expecting them to be more like sidekicks, but there's some real fun Shakespearean clashes going on between Strange and Mordo. They build them up as sort of, you know, they have kind of a brothers thing going on. As you know, he's recruited into the magic world by Mordo, basically, and then you see more Baron Mordo because.
Whoa, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. Anybody who reads the comics knows that Mordo is not going to be a good guy long term, but you get to start to see his fall, and that's really interesting. The effects for the Dark Dimension of Dread Dormammu are amazing and really, really accurate, weirdly, to the 1970s comic books, which you wouldn't think they could do and make it look cool, but they do. And the effects are very good. It establishes the rules of the magic world really well, so nobody ever seems to be pulling shit straight out of their ass, which is always a problem with wizards. Is eagles, that type of thing. If you don't define what their powers can do, then they're just a get out of issues quick, get out of plot contrivance quick button. And or how does Allison put it? Makes it easy.
Yeah, makes it easy.
Yeah. No, they establish some good rules for how the magic works. The mirror dimension where they do their magicking duels is really cool. And unlike those jackasses from Hogwarts, at least the wizards in the Marvel Universe realize that you have to kind of use this magic stuff to protect normal people, as opposed to just hiding from them.
Hey, technology exists.
That's actually a couple of interesting. They have some fun nods at that. There's a thing in the trailer where he's just been led into the place where he's training, and Mordo gives him a sheet of paper that says Shambhala on it. And he's like, "What is this, my mantra?" He's like, "No, it's your Wi-Fi password." We're not savages. And so, like, there are parts where, like, you see he's got an ancient spell book in on one side and a laptop on the other. And he's because he's using the laptop to look up translations and things like that.
Yeah.
They don't play the magic and the technological as like opposing forces or non-overlapping magisteria. They blend together in sort of the tradition of Marvel, which is the stuff that goes all sci-fi and goes into space, and the stuff that gets all trippy and mystical all meet at the back end and blur together. So like they really take to heart that whole significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic thing. But there's a lot of fun stuff. Definitely see it in the theaters, and definitely stay there 2 things after the credits. And but I give it a thumbs up. This was one of those things that could have really been really easy to ruin. It would have been it was very plainly really difficult for them to get it done well, and they did it well. Also, props to the costuming. Oh, there's another beautiful thing, which is Doctor Strange's cloak of levitation is semi-sentient, kind of like Aladdin's magic carpet, and that leads to some fun stuff. Some fun sequences and things like that. But and it name checks such beautiful continuity stuff. References to the Living Tribunal. There's a reference to the you remember in Iron Man? You haven't seen all the Marvel movies, but did you see Iron Man 2?
Yes.
Okay, remember when Hammer was making the knockoff Iron Man armor, and that one military dude gets like snapped in half by it?
Dimly.
Yeah. There's a scene where
Well, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, that there's a reference to that. Doctor Strange gets a call when he's still a neurosurgeon. He gets a call from a guy who's running
Spoilers,
patients
by the
by
way.
him, and that guy is mentioned. This military brass who got a severe spinal injury while testing out experimental armor.
Hmm.
And but there's a lot of
Spoilers,
little
yeah.
nods and Easter eggs. I enjoyed it greatly. It was a great birthday gift from a friend.
Yep. One more little tidbit before we move on to the main thrust. The back to nostalgia bit. We are now neck deep in the Christmas shopping season, which for toy geeks like us means it's time to start checking your Ross's and TJ Maxx's and Marshall's stores, which are largely your clothing discounters. You know, they get surplus, but this is when their toy departments start expanding.
And they start getting interesting stuff.
Yeah, right now you can get like Transformers Combiner excuse me, the Combiner Wars torso bots for like $15 a pop. I have seen multiple Skylinkses. Of course, this was after you bought yours online.
Yeah, well, I wound up paying basically the same I would have anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
Some places, mostly TJ Maxx's at the moment, are also getting the Generation 2 box sets of Combiner Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for Devastator. Not Devastator, Bruticus.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to buy Bruticus at his normal $100 price tag, but for $40,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll buy me a G2 Bruticus.
Yeah, I've been checking my local ones, but if you find a TJ Maxx that has two of them, I will pay you back.
Okay. I have found one Menasor, but I already got him.
If I find a Menasor locally, I'll probably get him too. I like the G2 Stunticon colors. Like them better than the standard colors.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly the who winds up being yellow?
I think that's Wild Rider.
Yeah, Wild Rider G2 Wild Rider looks really nice.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, it'd be another chance to get yet another G2 breakdown.
Yeah, I'm seeing reports that Computron has been showing up.
Ooh.
Yeah. And somebody apparently found Titan's Return Astro Train already there, which is bizarre.
Yeah, that's weird. Because Titan's Return isn't even close to at the end of its run.
No, I mean it's Wave 2 is only just starting to really peter out.
Yeah.
I say peter out. It's only just starting to really get out.
Yeah, it's really starting to soak in. Yeah. Which reminds me, check out my Shapeways store for numerous things to complement your Combiner Wars and other characters.
And Titan's Return phases,
yeah.
and yeah. But yeah, I mean, and if you're interested in odd toys and stuff that may not have really made it out, it's worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've seen a lot of Transformers. I've seen some interesting knockoff Lego stuff.
Well,
there's lots of Marvel figures.
For the people that are kind of new at this, or who don't do toy collecting, or are kind of new at it, one of the things that basically happens is the stuff that's at the tail end of any given line. And a line may be something as simple as just 1 year's worth of product, or it may be with a brand change like you have with Transformers. But whenever the stuff at the tail end tends to get passed over in favor of the stuff for the front end of the next big thing.
Yeah.
So tail end stuff can be difficult to find. And so that stuff usually winds up leaking out to either foreign markets or to places like TJ Maxx, Ross, and Kohl's. They tend to pick up that type of stuff, bargain, because
Kohl's not so much. They're not really a discounter, are they?
I find stuff at Kohl's still not as often, but yeah.
in my experience, they're not as cheap as other
They're
places.
not as cheap, but you can still find the same stuff. It's a little bit more. Those types of places get it. Sometimes Tuesday morning does, but it's usually
yeah, Tuesday morning can be really hit and miss. Oh, Ollie's. If you have any Ollie's outlets.
Oh yeah, we don't have Ollie's.
I've been hearing that somehow they've been getting Masterpiece Grimlocks.
Holy.
The Toys R Us Masterpiece Grimlocks for like $40.
I'd pay $40 for a Masterpiece Grimlock. That's not.
Oh
bad.
yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Again, people who are watching may not know this. I'm not terribly big on collector-aimed toys.
No, me either.
My thing I'm a fan of is the experience of toy, more than any individual representation of a fictional character. So the stuff that's all collector-aimed and fidgety and fragile, I don't tend to like as much.
But it's kind of hard to make Generation 1 Grimlock too complicated.
Right.
You got to really work at that.
And boy, howdy do they work at it.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
But hey, $40.
Yeah. It's like so many Grimlocks that Hasbro has made that they try to not transform like G1 Grimlock. And it's always a mistake. G1 Grimlock's transformation is probably the best you're going to get on a T-Rex to robot transformation. The only other good one is Beast Wars Megatron, and that winds up with a T-Rex head for hand.
Well, Robots in Disguise Grimlock does a pretty decent job.
He's still pretty darn G1 Grimlocky for his transformation, though.
Yeah.
Tail.
Every time they stray too far, it just really...
Yeah. You wind up getting things like War for Cybertron Grimlock, which was complicated completely unnecessarily.
And ended up with wonky proportions.
Yeah, because if they'd stuck with the way he transforms from the G1 transformation, which is how he transforms in the game, he would have looked great. If we gotten like 16 repaints of him, I wouldn't have minded.
Yeah. But yeah, people kind of new to toy hunting, check out those smaller discount places. Big Lots can sometimes find stuff. Around the holidays, their toy departments really... Oh, apparently has Kroger Kroger Markets, which apparently are Kroger grocery stores that actually have some clothing and furniture. They're not like a full department store, but they're like a grocery store with some slight department store. I've heard that apparently they're getting some of the Robots in Disguise mini-cons that haven't made it out. I'll have to check the regular grocery stores, see if... because we don't have any marketplaces here.
Yeah. Did, just so I know, is Tricera shot amongst those?
No. These are still the torpedoes and cyclones and stuff.
Yeah, because I really want a Tricera shot.
So do I. I have no idea. But yeah, if you're new to the whole toy collecting game and you want stuff kind of on the cheap, and whether it's tail end or middle stuff that's just overstock, check out those places. You can usually get stuff fairly cheap.
Okay.
If you're patient.
And
I believe today we're going to do another round of nostalgia failure, but this time talking about how we would fix two of the big problem lines. The big 80s nostalgia ones that just can't get a break today.
Joe and Thundercats.
Yep.
Now, I had my way of fixing Joe. And
well, I think let's talk about some. We've talked about this like in text on Tumblr and occasionally bits and pieces in on Twitter. But Joe's got some real problems if you're sticking with the real American hero.
Well, yeah, and it's been explored in a lot of detail in other places, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But it can
but we can probably hit the highlights.
Yeah, the highlights are, it's almost impossible to sell internationally now, because people in other countries are not fans of the U.S. military. Shock.
And partially, and also even here, U.S. military maybe not so much on the ground war anymore.
Well,
you don't really have so much.
we have a low opinion of our current ongoing wars, and GI Joe has always performed poorly when there's a war going on. That's kind of counterintuitive, but GI Joe is about the fantasy of war, not the reality of war, and the reality of war pushes the fantasy of war out of the way. And this is not something that I came up with. I forget who did. It was somebody in a chat on Ouija once or something, but nobody wants a reminder that little Timmy's dad might not be coming home from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Under the tree. So that's your big thing. And in the way they've solved this in the past with G.I. Joe is any time that the specter of war starts hanging too heavy, they switch over to with the 12-inch Joes at least, they would switch over to what they called Adventure Joe, where G.I. Joe basically becomes Race Bannon and goes off and hunts Yetis and
uncovers ancient tombs.
Yeah,
a little bit of Indiana Jones.
A whole lot of Race Bannon, Dr. Quest type stuff. Giant
but
cobras
as of late
in the mummy's tomb and stuff like that.
They've avoided that because 80s nostalgia is still huge. They keep trying to replicate Transformers. Mm-hmm. But one of the other problems I've noticed with Joe, which is less overt and takes a little... Most of the big popular series anymore has a more identifiable character, an entry-level character. Historically, this has been, your obnoxious kid's sidekick. But as of the last, decade and change, that character has kind of evolved into something much more important. Much more... Steven Universe would not be anywhere as good as it is without Steven.
Right.
Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm. Even in
Ben 10.
Ben is the person who's in the dark.
There's kind of an entry level. Even Transformers has done a pretty decent job with its humans as of late.
Yeah, and the more fantasy type series. Well, I guess it's not more. The ones with the less where the main cast isn't human tend to follow a structure where I like to call what I call the world ambassador. April O'Neil is a world ambassador. The human kids in the Transformer series are world ambassadors. And basically, they exist to have the fantastical world explained to them, and then to explain the mundane world to the aliens.
Here's a bit of a bridge. That's Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels.
Right, yeah.
He was brought into this world, and we kind of follow it through him, as he's learning more and more about, the universe of Star Wars.
In classic trilogy, there's a reason that the movies start off following Luke Skywalker and not start off following Han Solo.
Yeah. You
start with a guy who knows nothing, because then he gets to learn along with the audience. Joe doesn't really have that.
No, there's not. G.I. Joe is about the best of the best of the best. They've already started. There is no journey here.
Right. Not only that, Joe has the problem that while if you think about all of their characters' abilities, every single one of them is a Captain America, and that's pretty impressive. Because nobody knows how to fly both fly a helicopter and drive a tank. That just doesn't happen. Those are but everybody in G.I. Joe has a full military specialty and a secondary backup military specialty, but it's in the most boring way possible.
And part of it is also Joe, even with the update, still seems kind of... It feels like it's behind. Like I said, I'm no big military buff, but Joe always kind of felt like it was behind, even when it updated.
Oh, no, Joe has always been Vietnam era.
Well, I'm talking even the modern stuff.
No, I mean, the Joe in Real American Hero has been Vietnam era military. Most of what's been going on, they're almost always stuck in that platoon MASH era
mindset, if not in technology.
Yeah. And the interesting, but one of the things I like to point out is that if Hasbro wanted to make a series about a clandestine paramilitary group that fights amazingly powerful high-tech terrorists, they've got the Marvel license. There's a thing called Shield. It has a TV show.
Yeah.
You know, and
But they gotta license that.
yeah. But still, I mean, one of the things is that, I mean, you compare, like, when we were kids, superhero stuff was not around outside of the comics that much. I mean, you got
Not really. You had your Super Friends cartoon.
and then you had like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but that stuff was always very stodgy and uncool in a way. I mean, it was kind of like, especially Super Friends was kind of dorky.
Yeah.
And so all the toy advertising things were still giving you superheroes. They were just giving you different superheroes than the comics did. G.I. Joe is ultimately a superhero group. The original G.I. Joe Real American Hero story was a rejected S.H.I.E.L.D. pitch. Son of Nick Fury. But now kids have ready access to a whole bunch of really exciting superheroes. And Snake Eyes is not as cool of a ninja as most of the ninjas that they're accustomed to. He's got no magic powers. I mean,
I'd say any of the Ninjago guys from Lego could probably outcool him as far as abilities go.
he's not a talking animal person. He doesn't have magic powers. He's just a ninja. It was really cool in the 1980s when we had movies about nothing but when we had like the American Ninja movies and stuff, but
Okay, I will.
the world has moved on though.
Yeah.
And so Joe has this problem that it
is a relic of the past.
right.
Even when it updates, it's still a relic of the past.
And it isn't competing against and for its niche, which was at the time 3 3/4 figures. It's now competing against every superhero line and movie line out there now. I mean, everybody's out there to get in that. That's the big hot.
You want that gang
class.
of plucky specialists fighting a gigantic face masked evil force? That's called Star Wars.
And if you want a whole bunch of people with like really specific ability sets who work as a combined team against threats that the rest of the world can't handle, they're called the Avengers. And at least, and the Avengers at least have the thing that the people who have like a whole lot of military specialty, they give them cool things like trick arrows and little stinger weapons on their arms
and super shields.
Yeah, and they throwing indestructible
power
shield.
armor and
yeah. I mean, it's like everybody's like 10 times cooler, way more identifiable, massive big budget films. But we've hit most of the problems that Joe has. Do you want to do your how I'd fix it, or do you want?
Well, it was one. Trent and I have driven across the country a few times.
Oh.
Well, you've ridden halfway across and back, and I've driven the full length.
Right.
During those long trips, we tend to, since these were for BotCon back when that existed.
Back when that was a thing.
Yeah. We would occasionally just, because there's not a whole hell of a lot to do from between Texas and California. Once you leave Amarillo, Texas, you can go hours without hitting a city of any notable size. I think there's like 3.
And going over how we'd fix one of these old toy lines to make it cool and hip for the youngins is way more fun than singing John Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Yeah. I mean, hell, we were tapped to basically do that for Transformers once, weren't we?
Yeah. We can't talk about that except on our resumes and our LinkedIn pages right now.
Yeah, we can just say that we did some contract work.
We can also say you're welcome.
Yeah.
But no.
But G.I. Joe, I remember our idea was heavily focused around the concept that was mentioned earlier, audience identification. That you take, okay, fine. Duke, he can be military. He can be your uber military guy. Everybody else, no.
We came up
Hometown heroes.
we came up with the idea of basically ganking the mask shtick, where everybody had were like people drawn from areas of civilian uh, expertise.
Yeah, or maybe local emergency. I mean, you've got Barbecue the firefighter. Sure, why not? But like Roadblock, good old Roadblock. He would be the Soul Kitchen chef, part of a
It would.
the center of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
His restaurant is where everybody went and everybody loved him. But Cobra's kind of pushing gang violence and creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
Roadblock ain't the guy who's going to stand for it.
Right.
Well, Roadblock and his brother, because now he has a brother.
Yeah.
To cover up for the trademark kerfuffle that when they couldn't use Roadblock.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets recruited by Duke to be part of this team to stop the undercover Cobra organization. And Lady J would be an ex-Olympian, javelin toss.
Mm-hmm. Scarlet was an actress.
Mainframe, obvious Google employee,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some Silicon Valley type.
Yeah, Silicon Valley. So they start pulling. And Cobra, you want to explain how Cobra worked?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Because I had one very simple lead-in, and this was at the top of our pitch. Cobra Commander is the devil. Now, not literally. He's not literally the devil. But he does what the devil does. In The Devil and Daniel Webster, and in
As the Devil Do.
In any old Scratch version of it. The Cobra Commander finds you when you're at your weakest, and he offers you a deal. He will give you what you want, but the price is very high. And if you take the Cobra Commander's deal, he will give you power, but you become his. And that's where the Cobra villains come from.
There would be a much heavier focus on the individual villains.
Yes.
Dr. Mindbender wouldn't have accidentally dentisted himself into villainy. He would have made the deal.
Right. For example, the one that I used was the Baroness. We were going off of the idea of the nanotech that Cobra uses in the movies and in a couple of other things. And the idea would be that the nanotech could be used to augment people and improve them, but it also put you under the Cobra Commander's control. But it couldn't
on a leash,
basically. But it couldn't be. It wasn't it wouldn't work if you didn't take it willingly. If you resisted the conversion process when it was injected into you, it wouldn't work. So he had to find people who would do it willingly. So he finds people who are broken and vulnerable. So, like...
The Baroness.
The Baroness would have been this aging starlet who has locked herself up in her mansion and is watching her old films and is obsessed with her lost youth. And so the plot that we had with her was that Cobra Commander offers her youth back in exchange for basically being the head of Cobra propaganda. And she does get the nanites repair her, restore her to her youth. She winds up imprisoning her own granddaughter to take her identity, which is where you get the character Chameleon, who was again introduced when there were some trademark issues. And that's where that comes from. And we focused on characters like Big
Crystal
Boa.
Ball.
Crystal Ball. Yeah, Crystal Ball was Scarlet's stalker, basically.
I remember he was like a what's his name, that shitty
Chris
quote,
Angel
magician. Yeah, Chris Angel.
Mind freak.
Yeah, one of those fuckwits.
Yeah, we reimagined him as this sort of like really douchey magician mentalist type. And his whole thing was that the nanotech had actually given him the ability to actually put people into a hypnotic trance for real.
Because he was famous. Because he managed to take his 15 minutes of fame and get it down to about 5.5.
Right. And like Big Boa is this broken down old boxer who wants to relive his glory days. it's like everybody associated with, like, what was the
I don't even remember what Destro's was.
um
He may just be kind of. I don't think he really had a Faustian deal. I think he
no,
was.
Destro was the guy who came in eyes open and didn't even ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy who he still filled Destro's role, which is to be the asshole runner.
Yeah, Destro's role is pretty universal. There's always going to be some bastard like that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to do much with Destro.
Yeah, Destro is one of the few ones that fits well. He's a real good Bond villain. The other
Yeah.
big one I think we had was the what was the name of the dude? Raptor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it was just called Raptor.
yeah. It had the bird flight suit. Basically,
Yeah.
it was basically the idea was to ramp Cobra up into being actual supervillains, and then make the Joes into a group of sort of civilian heroes that are recruited, because the guy that's running the whole thing, the old cranky, broken down Joe Colton, the founder of GI Joe, who is now this broken down, angry old man like Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond, has
The
decided
government ain't helping.
government ain't helping. The basic idea was that GI Joe was originally developed as this sort of like military anti X Files type thing, where instead of going to investigate weird paranormal shit that happens, they just go in to destroy it or to capture it. And he starts noticing that there's this pattern coming back of these weird occurrences, but he can't convince the government to help, so he starts his own group with his millions that he made after the war, which leads them into conflict with actual military people, which is where a lot of other Joe characters can be recycled into more familiar forms.
Yeah.
Your Flints and so forth. But
And you wouldn't need to change Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow that much. But, that's. There's room for the familiar, but it kind of needs a core ground level reworking.
right. And it was much more science fiction. It was much more road trippy. Like,
Yeah.
they traveled around a lot. You have a lot of different vignette pieces and set pieces as you went through.
So I rather liked that.
The thing we ran into with Thundercats was a different set of problems.
Oh, Thundercats has got quite a few problems.
Thundercats doesn't make any goddamn sense. This is one of its strengths, not a weakness. So, but it doesn't have what you would call sort of thematic solidarity. It's a lot
Not
of
really, no.
a lot of stuff kind of thrown into a blender. It's like they're cat people, but they're more like they're from the musical Cats than actual cats. And
But then you've got those real more animalistic mutants with it. Well, I mean, that's how 80s toy lines
Yeah.
typically went. Throw shit at a wall. Who cares? Okay, so these are vehicles versus plant vehicles with faces. Sure, why not? No, yeah.
it's like in this case, it's like our good guys are cat people. Okay, so their bad guys are going to be like dogs or other animals? Nope, a mummy. And in the second season, cybernetic pirates. And in the third season, a bunch of bondage freaks. Ted, you're a genius. We'll make millions. But
Well, let's address some of the faults of the recent Thundercats revamp.
okay. Now, I will say that the recent Thundercats...
I didn't watch much of it because I found it terminally boring and tan. It was a beige series.
It spent way too much time world building and not enough time world exploring. And its greatest problem was that the really interesting shit was a flashback to all the stuff that set up everything that was going on in the now. Because, like, they had this whole saga where, like, Lion-O goes back in time into the body of his ancestor who's on a spaceship that's being piloted by the being that would one day become Mum-Ra, who has all the animal people from hundreds of different worlds as slaves. And that whole, like, break everybody out of Mum-Ra's control and forge the Sword of Omens and shit, that was cool. That like had
Yeah,
it was
sounds
action packed. It
interesting.
had pacing and drama and everything. The stuff on the planet was slow, and everybody kind of wore beige. And
That and the Thundercats didn't match the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the world seemed to be very anthro-animal. The Thundercats, just vaguely felinoid
Yeah.
humans.
Even so, they didn't put as much variety into the other species as they did with the Thundercats. Because, like, it's like the Thundercats clearly represent multiple different species with their species names being in their names, but, like, all the lizards are just the same kind of lizard. And all of the ape people are the same kind of ape people. Whereas, you would think that, like, if the Thundercats are this varied, then the ape people should be like a mandrill guy and a baboon
gibbons,
man
yeah.
and a macaque.
Nope. But no, that's I recently watched H Bomber Guy. I like him. Did an hour and a half video about Bloodborne. A game's, that whole game series I've never touched, but he had a very good point about one of the faults of the series beforehand was that it always felt like the world, all the interesting stuff in the world had already happened. There was nothing. Why are you doing this? This world isn't even worth saving.
Right.
It's not about you. But the recent Bloodborne game, you felt like you were more part of the story. The interesting things were, sure, bad shit happened to get things in this way, but it wasn't done yet. Things are progressing, or getting worse, but you're part of the story. And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah.
All the interesting stuff if all the interesting stuff has already happened...
Yeah. That only works in MMOs. But the basics of what we came up with was the idea that, one, the Thundercats should be more cat-like. Less humanoid, a little bit more felinoid, more variety in what they can do and what they can look like. The costume redesigns for the new stuff weren't bad, they just needed color.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you'd made them as colorful as their, I guess, G1, if you wanted to give it a name, if you made them as, colorful and, let's face it, toyetic as they were back then, it might have helped a little bit. They would have been more visual.
Well, even the original was kind of muted in its color palette.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of orange and blue.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a very, like I said, it's a muted blue.
Yeah.
Panthro should have like a deep, rich navy blue. Chitara should be in bright orange and yellow.
Yeah. And
deep reds, really ramp up the color.
Yeah. And one of the things that I thought would be interesting is, again, Mum-Ra sticks out like a sore thumb, is that if you're going to have them be cats, the Egyptians mummified a lot of cats. And has anyone ever seen a cat skull? Freaking terrifying looking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, an evil cat-headed mummy, as being sort of the dark reflection of the Thundercats that have come to his world, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The idea was that, like,
I remember there was a lot of fiefdoms.
Yeah.
Based around the various... Like, the Canids had their own... Jackalman had his own setup.
Right.
And his own, like, gang of 4 or 5 generals.
And they were as varied as the Thundercats. So
actually, I think... Actually, wasn't... No, wait. No, it was the hyenas who had the queen.
Right, yeah. Because hyenas are by nature...
matriarchal.
Yeah, the females are larger and more powerful than the males.
I think they were in a uneasy, not quite war with the jackals.
Yeah,
as I recall.
there was a rivalry between the hyena people and the jackalmen.
And they'd swapped, like they'd given each other generals.
Yes, yeah, that was their thing.
So Jackalman had like a high-ranking hyena lady in his court, and
they had
the hyenas had a jackal,
like had a jackal or a wolf or something. Because I think we also had like the jackals also had like wolves and foxes and things like that in their tribe.
Yeah.
And
what was it? Dingo the Kid or?
Yeah, Dingo the Kid. Yeah.
Play up, furry, haha. Play up the animal angles.
Yeah, and also there was the thing. It's like the way that you kept the ridiculousness was that the jackal meant like uh, uh,
Jackalman was going to be a hedonist.
mm-hmm.
He kind of ran New Vegas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dingo the Kid was still kind of like a cowboy.
Yeah.
And so, like, you could apply, like, that dude is like a silverback gorilla, but he's also like a Roman gladiator. And
Yeah.
that type of stuff. You could keep that kind of wild mix thing, kind of get a little bit more Ninja Turtles into the blood, basically. And,
Yeah, there was a lot of Ninja Turtles kind of, just ramp up the animal.
there's something very powerful about animal plus job equals superhero.
Yeah.
And, yeah, like,
Shark plus king equals King Shark, who is a shark.
who doesn't love King Shark?
Everybody loves King Shark, even when they're being devoured.
Mm-hmm. Or, you just had to go back to any era of Ninja Turtles. Oh, that guy is a Dalmatian and he's a firefighter. Well, that makes sense.
Yep.
Oh, hey, Samurai
Cat
Rabbit.
burglar. Yeah. I mean, hell, there you go. That's what you do. You have a Usagi Yojimbo. Usagi Yojimbo hasn't shown up for the new Turtles, has he?
Don't think so. Not
No,
yet.
I don't
but
think
they're
he has.
They will do it. Mark my words. They always do.
This isn't something you've heard, but this is something that just seems inevitable.
It's every version of the Ninja Turtles that has lasted more than a year has crossed over eventually with Usagi Yojimbo.
Did the Fox Kids one get Usagi Yojimbo?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The Fox Kids ones they spent like 4 episodes in Usagi Yojimbo's dimension, and then another episode down the line where Gin winds up wandering around New York, and when he decides that his wandering samurai clothes are not appropriate, he dresses up like Bebop, like Rocksteady. He dresses up like
Nice.
Rocksteady. But yeah, they spent a lot. They went through like all of the other ideas that Eastman and Laird had in that show. They went to Planet Racers. They went to.
They didn't have Radical and Complete Carnage, did they?
No, I think there's some right stuff about them. They've never been used in anything else, and I don't know why. Because like you would have thought they would have shoved them into that sort of mini Justice League that they had in the Fox series, but they didn't.
Yeah. We're getting off track.
Yeah, we're getting off track. But the idea would basically be to ramp up the fun and
Make a living world of animalistic tribes and have, tie Mum-Ra very specifically to the Thundercats themselves.
And
I mean, I believe the Thundercats were kind of like in the original. They would have been a degraded kingdom.
yeah, my thought was that my thought on how it was is that the Thundercats would have launched from Thundera when it was being destroyed, or what they thought was Thundera being destroyed. And when they came out of stasis and they crashed on Third Earth, it would be a long reveal to show that Third Earth was actually Thundera, and that they had been in space for thousands of years, and the world had changed while they were gone. And Mum-Ra was actually an ancient Thundercat who had been kept alive with dark magic. He was basically the sins of the past in a living form, basically.
And actually, that I'm now that the mental scabs are being picked, I seem to recall that was why the Thundercats were not very welcome anywhere, because their kingdom was not. While they were gone, their kingdom didn't get very nice with its neighbors, with the small tribes that were starting to grow and.
Yeah, basically, what of the Thundercat society wasn't wiped out by the cataclysm that they were fleeing, wound up falling to the other tribes because they were. Well, basically, Mum-Ra is an example of what they became.
Warlike.
Yeah, they turned to dark stuff to try and survive and get their power back, and fell into degeneracy, as an old pulp writer would write it.
So this is why the new tribes of various animal people are not real fond of the Thundercats.
Which, admittingly, is an idea we pulled from the new series where the Thundercats are basically the privileged sons of bitches on the mountain.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the...
Although in this case it's more that the Thundercats, well, they were, but in this case also, everybody else is afraid, oh, they're coming to kill us. Like they have been, like they were a couple centuries ago.
Oh, wait, it's like... Well, basically it would be like, oh, boy, I know things are crazy now, but at least we don't have to worry about that Roman Empire. Oh, man, yeah, remember when the Roman Empire ruled everything and we had to pay all those taxes to them? And what do you mean a time door is opened and a Roman legion just came through?
With their, with
a Caesar
weapon. with a Caesar and their signature rallying weapon.
All the Greek
the
fire
symbol
they can
of
carry.
their
yeah.
The symbol of their empire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck.
And that is one thing I do like to have in stuff where there's a big magical, powerful talisman or something. Or even just like one of the ideas that we had for some of our post Beast Wars fic that we were working on, Beast Machines fic, is just the idea that if something gets powerful enough and notorious enough, just carrying it around makes people nervous.
Yeah.
It's like I had this idea that after Beast Machines, any of the people from the Axelon crew were so notorious at that point that if they wandered into someone else's territory, everyone thought they were probably there to start a war.
Yeah.
Because anytime Rat Trap shows up, the world changes.
Shit's about to go down.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, what are you carrying? It's like, oh, this is the Sword of Omens. It's a sentient super weapon that can rally my people to superhuman capacity just by shining
proximity.
its light
Yeah.
and giving a morale boost that makes them powerful. That's like, if you think about it in the context of the original Thundercats series, they never explain what happens when, the Thundercats hoe.
Yeah.
But they do, their eyes glow and they get better at shit. And if you're and it's like with six Thundercats, that's a pretty neat advantage. But if there was a army of Thundercats,
yeah,
it's like
when you're staring down a couple thousand.
Yeah, if you are in a situation where you have an army and they have a gizmo that gives them, say, a 10% advantage anytime they use it, and all it takes is the leader saying thunder, thunder, Thundercats, ho.
And basically being in line of sight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, and also that freaking spotlight shined for miles.
Yeah.
There were things in, like, the old series where they would see it, like, from, like, they would do it at the I swear they would do it at home base and you could see it from Mum-Ra's pyramid. And, of course, in the old series, I do have a certain amount of sympathy for Mum-Ra because they're trespassing.
Yeah.
It's his planet. I mean, yes, he's evil, but he does rule it. I mean, he's technically the government. And it
doesn't seem, I don't seem to recall him actually, I don't recall him rarely doing anything. Did the Robert Burbles really have anything to fear up until the Thundercats came around?
There were local barbarians that came by and picked off their fruit and stuff and messed with them. But, that's local troubles. I mean, yeah, like, I'm not saying that Mum-Ra is, like, running a democracy here. I mean, he's clearly a tyrant. But he's
also a tyrant who's been napping for centuries.
Yeah. And what happened?
And doesn't seem real keen to mix shit up right now.
It's just like somebody lands on his planet, basically in his backyard, starts building a fortress, and is carrying around a weapon that can kill him. You're gonna send some mutants after that.
Yeah.
It's not like you can get the sheriff to serve them an eviction notice. I mean, it's a bunch of feline squatters.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Look, he's a hardworking man of faith, just trying to keep his territory clear of roving bands.
He just wants to take a nice long nap.
Oh, and you know how cats are.
Yeah. They love to sleep.
Oh no, it's like, you know how cats are. It's like if if you got 2 females and 4 males, you'll have 500,000 cats very soon. Feral cats wandering around, they kill the birds. They're not good for the environment.
No.
But, you know.
Yeah, that's...
And it is also...
I remember we've also kind of toyed with a few other lines, but some of them are just kind of beyond salvaging outside of, yeah, nostalgia grab.
Yeah, and in some cases it's just like, well, we'll just take the one idea. I mean, sometimes you only have the one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a deep fondness for wheeled warriors.
Well, to take this back...
We bought a couple of them at one BotCon.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody...
Yeah.
Was it Bickmore?
Yeah, Bickmore was selling them, yeah.
Yeah, so I got my KO Cruiser, which is one that I've always really enjoyed.
I got the...
Big truck with nasty grill and a wrecking ball on the back.
I got the tank dude.
Yeah. And I did pick up Sawboss as well. I really ought to get Gun Grinner and Terror Tank.
Yeah, Terror Tank's the one
The big walker can go right to hell. I don't care about that thing.
Yeah. But to take it back to the beginning, going back to Wander Over Yonder, that was one of those things, well, all I really want is Skeletor.
Yeah.
I can shave some serial numbers off of that.
I just want to make a silly story about Skeletor as a complete fucking idiot. And it's great because Lord Hater's ship is rendered entirely in airbrush.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It looks like it should be something that's on the side of somebody's van.
Not a very bright person's van, but... I mean, it's cheesy as all hell. It's a big skull face.
It's a big skull that's got tons and tons of exhaust pipes, chrome exhaust pipes coming out of it.
And lightning bolts on the top of the head.
Mm-hmm. No, it's... once you boil it down, I mean, really, the secret of Lord Hater's character is that he just wants to be cool.
Yeah.
And that is his complaint, like, with every rival villain. It's like, oh, that's so cool! Why don't I have one of those? Oh. But yeah. And again, going to what we were discussing in the previous vlog like this, yes, these are big departure concepts. These are not straight up rehashes of what was around in the 80s the first time through. And there's a reason for that. Because it's a different time now, for one. Like, straight up, it's not just a matter of, like, changes in animation quality or anything like that. Kids would not sit still for the types of stuff we got when we were kids now. They've been exposed to other, better things.
I mean, look at how, even with Lord of the Rings, fantasy itself really hasn't caught back on. Just your high fantasy, your outside of MMOs...
The appeal
of... even Harry Potter... I mean, Harry Potter is about as close as you get, and that's still set in the modern world, technically.
I think part of it is because fantasy is literally escapist, and it works best in books and games. Because in a book, you are the protagonist. You fall into that world very much. It's very much about what you can bring to the written word and the world you can leave out of it.
And what the reader envisions.
What the reader envisions. And then in games, you get to be involved with it. And the thing that fantasy brings, and high fantasy, is you have a world where magic exists. The world is a romanticized version of the past. It is not a realistic version of the past ever. It's a romanticized version of the past where morality is played out through the actions of people, not systems. And so the law, it's that classic video game screen. Trust only your fists, the police will never help you. It's a world where individual people in a small group can make a world-changing can change the world through their actions.
Yeah.
Their courage, their bravery. And really, as much as people will malign high fantasy for its connections to, say, classic medieval structures of power and things like that. Really, what it comes down to is it's the same thing that the fantasy of the West provides.
Yeah.
It's a place where good people and bad people wear their colors proudly and clash for the soul of humanity. And that's, again, that's superheroes, that's soap operas, that's wrestling.
Yeah.
But the specific brand of it that you get with your wizards and hobbits and shit, it's mostly an experience that's, I would say, best absorbed through books and games under most circumstances. And some of that's the limitations of budget, and some of that's just the way that those stories play out.
Yeah.
But we've got about an hour under the hood now, so I think we've
Yeah, I mean, I can't even think of...
enough.
I think, yeah, we couldn't... Most of the toy lines, you know, the old 80s stuff we thought about, just, Again, Voltron has bucked expectations, but God, did it change so much. It's not a Monster of the Week thing. That alone is a gigantic departure.
Yeah. Anybody who follows my blog, my Tumblr, could easily tell what 80s series I would reboot if I had, all the money and the druthers. But I gotta say that there wasn't much to work with in the beginning on that, and some serial number filing and complete reinvention from the ground up has helped immensely. It's dinosaurs! I so wanted that show to be good when I went back and rewatched it.
And it wasn't.
Oh god, it's like sub-GoBots level.
Oh.
It has all the same problems as GoBots, but that's a tale for a different day. Alright. Alright, well thanks for joining us. This is Trent signing out.
And Greg. We're on our way with more.
Ciao.
Hey, Pipples, if you liked our nonsense, why don't give us a like, or a subscribe, or leave a comment down there somewhere.
You can also do us a big solid by joining our Patreon, where you'll get to join us for live streams, get early access to the newest videos, and other such things.
Geek Vision.